What's up, guys? This is Jay and Justin and John. We're bringing you the first ever live three-man podcast. John's head barely fit, but we're going to make it work and break down this three-game April 25th slate for you guys. For all you D-gens kind of still playing NBA, I think this is shaping up to be one of the better slates, I think, looking it over pretty easy. And, yeah, how's it going, guys? Waiting for your coffee?
We're struggling over here.
I don't know what house doesn't own a coffee maker. This is absurd.
Yeah.
This is very reminiscent, this podcast, though, of the Fireplace podcast, except Justin's going to talk more in this one, so everyone won't be overruling him. I can barely fit on the screen, so it's just going to stay that way. I have to get in an awkward position just to get my head in, so screw it.
Your head is like 8 times bigger than the average. Your head is Kawhi
I look
Leonard's
40
hand.
times bigger than y'all, to be honest.
All right, or Cowie's hand, I should say.
It's Cowie Leonard.
Yeah, we're gonna go get some coffee, and I'm gonna go get some. They're gonna get coffee. I'm gonna get candy after we finish this pod. So we'll jump into it real quick. But first game we got on the list is the Heat at the Hornets. Hornets are favored by 2, a total of 195.5. We do have some injuries in this game. Hassan Whiteside is questionable with a right thigh contusion. He's gonna be a game time decision. So obviously that's a big one to monitor. And then Tyler Johnson's still out with the left shoulder surgery. And then on the Hornets side, we got a big one. Nicholas Batum is out with the strained left foot injury. So we're going to see the exact same starting lineup as last game. Kemba, Lee, Marvin Williams, Kaminsky, and Al Jefferson. So let's start off on the Heat side. Kind of let's break down Whiteside real quick, the impact that his game time decision has. Who are you kind of looking at? And I think Luol Deng he's a good play anyways, but I think he stands to benefit a lot if Whiteside misses this one.
Yeah, and I'm a little hesitant to even use Whiteside in cash. I think he's, if healthy, it'd be fairly easy cash option on the slate. You can look at Al Jefferson too, but with Whiteside, it does look pretty serious to where he didn't really do much at all in shoot around, participate in their walkthrough. So it does sound like this is something that definitely can limit his effectiveness. So Deng is the guy you want to look at. I think he'll pick up some extra rebounds and be a really good bet for 30 to 35 DK points. He was just raining threes that last game. So I think he's a player on this team that you kind of start your cash game teams with.
Yeah, they're not going to play Stoudemire for 30 minutes, so it would make sense that they go smaller with Justice Winslow for additional time. But at the same time, why are you laughing? Why are you smiling when I talk?
you're
Because I'm halfway in. I need coffee. But Justice Winslow's upside.
You're shouting so loud.
Justice Winslow's upside only gives so much ceiling. So the additional minutes, but I don't think I'd be on him anyways. Luol Deng is definitely the guy, as you said.
Okay, well, let's break it down. Let's go the other side and say Whiteside's playing. I think Deng is still a strong play on this small slate for sure. I think Dragic is a nice tournament play. 6,100 on DraftKings I think is very affordable. We kind of have a top tier of loaded point guards on this slate. So yeah. I think some Dragic exposure opens up some contrarian lineup construction. So I think he's a good tournament option. I'm probably not going him in cash. I think you can kind of afford some of these top point guards in cash. And then, I think Dwayne Wade, it's kind of similar as the last slate that's played out where we have 2 cheap shooting guards, and I'd probably recommend going them again. We'll get into them in a minute. But I think Wade sets himself up a bit more as a tournament play in this one.
Yeah, just the way it kind of shapes out when I was making cash rosters this last time, and you figure out where you want to spend up, and it's not a shooting guard. I think you want to spend up point guard for sure. There's a lot of expensive point guards on the slate that are really attractive. You want to load up on them, and then punt with guys like Jeremy Lin and Courtney Lee. So Wade for sure is tournament. If you kind of just fit him in, it just gives you a whole different roster construction overall. You're going to have to, save at point guard, maybe look at, let's see, some cheaper options here. JJ Barea potentially. Darren out and Raymond Felton on FanDuel potentially. You kind of have to dumpster just save a little bit if you want to offer Dwayne Wade, but it will set you apart in tournaments, definitely.
Yeah, as you said, tournaments, specifically because Courtney Lee, obviously his minutes are safe in cash, but he doesn't offer near as much upside for tournaments, so there's really no point in going that. So as long as you can fit him in, yeah, that's definitely a good play tonight.
So if Whiteside ends up missing, I do think I'd want some definitely some Josh McRoberts potentially in tournaments. Some Amari Stoudemire as a cash game option as well. I think those two have no choice but to kind of combine for close to 48 minutes between them. So given their prices, I think they should be able to do enough against this Charlotte front court who isn't really intimidating anybody to really pay off their value. So you have to look at those two guys if Whiteside ends up missing.
Yeah, definitely. And we got some other options, so you kind of choose between the cheap options. But with some of these high-priced guys, you can kind of load up. Let's move on to the Hornets side and kind of get into these two cheap guys. Speaking of Courtney Lee and then Jeremy Lin, I think, too, is great value on this slate with Batum out, logging more minutes quite a bit. And then we got Frank Kaminsky as well, who's very cheap and went huge minutes last game. So I think, you kind of got to strongly consider him as an easy way to save salary, assuming he plays similar amount of minutes.
Yeah, I mean, this team is just where you're going to get all your value. Marvin Williams, Jeremy Lin, Courtney Lee, Frank Kaminsky, Al Jefferson, all of them are really conservatively priced, compared to the slate. And you can look at guys like, Aminu and Harkless on Portland, but your value overall in the slate is going to come from this team. I don't love the spot particularly. I think, they kind of overachieved last game. They beat the Heat by 16. It was 20 plus for large portions of that game. I think the Heat will come tougher in this one and kind of put the clamps on a little bit more. So I do expect, Kaminsky put up 28 DK points, Marvin Williams put up 34. I don't expect anything close to a repeat. I do expect them to kind of come back down to earth, but even then, given their prices, they should still be among the top value players of the slate.
Yeah, Len, as you said, his price way too cheap. He's locked in cash. Kaminsky, just way too cheap for the minutes he's now playing, locked in cash as well. And then Kemba, I think, had a more of a letdown spot, even though he still produced 30-plus DK points last game. So I would think with a usage rate still highest on the team without Batum, that you could easily go back to him as well in tournaments and cash.
Yeah, I think Kemba is actually by far my favorite tournament play on this team because the other four guys people are strongly considering are just going to be high-owned cash options. So I think a lot of people are going to write Kemba off, especially where point guard is loaded. You got Russ. So I think Kemba will kind of fall under the radar and people will use the four other. I mean, I'm looking at four of these guys in cash, just kind of getting easy ways to afford studs. So, you load up on Courtney Lee, Jeremy Lin, Frank Kaminsky, and Al Jefferson in cash, and you leave Kemba out. So I think a lot of people are kind of going to go that route, making Kemba a very contrarian play with obviously a lot of upside due to his usage.
Yeah, you got Chris Paul, Russ, Dame on the slate too. So everybody's going to be on those guys and opens up some potential really low ownership for Kemba here.
To move on to the next game, we got the Mavs at Thunder. Thunder are favored by 14.5. We're contemplating throwing some jelly beans on it, but I don't know. What do you guys think about the 14.5? It's pretty strong.
I think they'll end up covering it. I think this is going to be, the blows that Dallas has been dealt with the injuries has been kind of reached its critical mass. And, you already got like guys like Darren Williams, David Lee already out for the playoffs. And they're kind of, on their last legs right now. So, it always makes me nervous to bet on the Thunder to cover big spreads because they always kind of let down in those spots where there's the kind of easy spots. But given, at home and the way this, Dallas team is looking right now, I think this will definitely kind of, lean towards a double-digit potential blowout.
Yeah, we'll get into the injuries real quick. We got Darren, who is out the rest of the playoffs with sports hernia. JJ Barea is probable with that strained right groin, but he has looked very limited. So it's kind of hard to put too much weight into that. And then David Lee is out for the rest of this round, which will probably be this game, with right foot plantar fasciitis. And then Salah Majri is a game-time decision with a strained hip flexor. So that's, I think, a big thing to kind of monitor here too with if Majri's out as well. And with David Lee, they're pretty thin overall. So let's start on the Mavs side. We kind of just nailed a lot of plays on the Hornets side we're looking at, but I think there's value in this game, probably not as much on the Mav side as the Thunder, of course. Is there anyone you're kind of considering here strongly in cash?
Strongly in cash, probably not. I do think there are a couple options here for sure. Dirk, Raymond Felton, and Wes Matthews. All three came. All three played pretty well today. Last game, and Dirk in particular dropped 27 and 8. Given Darren's out, given Berea's banged up, Lee's out. The points have to come from somewhere, and it concerns me a little bit that Dirk isn't going to play like close to 40 minutes like he did last game. If this one gets out of hand, it becomes pretty obvious that they're not going to win. We could see some reduced minutes for Dirk, and then guys like Charlie V, Dwight Powell playing some garbage time. So Dirk is probably more of a tournament play for me. I don't. And kind of the same thing goes with Felton. I think Wes is fine as a punt play at shooting guard. Kind of in that Lee and Lynn grouping.
I'm still absolutely fine with Felton and cash. I don't even know if I'd go any other Maverick outside of tournaments, but Felton's the only one I'm definitely considering still cash as long as you can fit him in.
Yeah, I mean, he's the guy I probably feel the best about at cash, but I don't love his price. 6K on both sides. I think you can kind of do better and allocate your salary elsewhere. Go cheaper, go more expensive, then just kind of get some of these mid-range price guys. But I do like his floor a lot in this game. I think he's a fine cash play. I'm going to be looking elsewhere on my cash lineup.
Yeah, it's just a tricky spot because so he's shooting guard on DK, and at shooting guard, coming in cash, I probably want to save and just want to punt and get someone cheaper than someone at 6K. And like a FanDuel point guard. You got so many studs there that I'm going to try to fit in. I'll try to fit in Russ. I'll try to fit in CP3 for sure in this spot. And you got to look at Dame too. So it's just kind of a weird spot with Felton. Just the pricing and just the composition of the positions that he's eligible at on both sides.
Yeah, and like we said, we don't mind him in cash. I think you can construct your roster a bit better, squeezing value out of every dollar you're allowed to on this slate. So, and then the rest for me are more tournament options. What about if Salah Madri's out? Are you looking to go any Zaza?
I think it's really thin. Just the way this game plays out, Zaza's not going to play big minutes either way. I mean, they're going to get behind. There's no use for them to play Zaza big minutes. In kind of any way you kind of play this game out. You can see Charlie V. You can see some, Dirk at center. Some JaVale McGee potentially make an appearance in this one. We'll kind of see. You got to get weird, man. It's kind of a back in the corner. You got to try some stuff.
Definitely. All right, let's talk on the Thunder side. I think we like probably 4 players in this on this team. We'll kind of go through the top, obviously, with Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook. I think are very strong plays on this slate. I think you can afford both of them on FanDuel, especially on DK. I think you absolutely have to go at least one of them. So these are kind of the top 2 guys. The only concern really is blowout, but with a 3-game slate, I wouldn't put too much stock into that. These guys Russ at least is putting up numbers, has a very high floor. Durant's been a little off. He's been elbowing people. I'm surprised he didn't get suspended, really. So we'll see what's up with Durant's attitude. But as far as this game goes, I'm still looking at going him strongly on FanDuel. I'm not really concerned about his lack of production comparative to price. I think you could comfortably afford that price. And then who else are you kind of looking for on this team to get value out of?
I got to go Enes Kanter. I want to look at him pretty heavily here. We did do the research that it was kind of flip-flop, but he's been playing, he's got that upside, and I think a really stay floor in this one. He should be definitely considered in cash. Usually I just consider him only in tournaments, but given this spot and how I expect the game to go, and how I think he'll get extended run and a very likely blowout, I definitely want to seriously consider him in this spot.
Yeah, the landscape overall for Thunder, like Westbrook, at least you can afford him, but if you're only choosing one, at least there are other options at point guard, strong options to choose. For Durant, like it's not a night in which we have Paul George or any other strong small forwards. Like you're looking at Durant and Aminu for cash. If you're only choosing one, Durant's clearly the leader in that. So I do like Durant quite a bit tonight.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I think with the loaded point guard, I think for tournament purposes, I think it's fine if you do fade Russ. Just with the upside of some of these other guys, it's just kind of tough with Russ's floor right now. Is just so high. You really have to have these other guys go off. You have to have Dame have a huge game, Chris Paul, which they're plenty capable of. So and they're cheaper. So I think you kind of spend elsewhere, and that's might be like a Dwayne Wade lineup where you pay up at a position you normally wouldn't. Maybe fade Kaminsky in a tournament lineup and get some of these, fade Russ and get less expensive point guards.
Katie, for me, Katie is tournament only. I do understand John's point for sure, but small forward is probably another position I'll look to punt at. Small forward on DK, you can look at Aminu and Luol Deng, and a small forward on FanDuel, you're looking at Aminu and Marvin Williams. I think those are two strong combinations that you look at. I do question Durant's downside. He's shown a floor. He's been more susceptible to kind of up and down. Russ has been right at or around 50 DK points all 4 games. He's been so consistent no matter what the result, the outcome, whatever, however the game's flowing. KD has been very up and down. So for me, KD is tournament only. I don't like him enough to cash him. I would rather spend up at point guard and pay for guys I know who will be very safe, like Chris Paul and Russ, and you can throw Dame or Kemba in there as well if you want.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on the side probably leaning. I'm going KD on FanDuel where you don't have to worry about the salary as much. There are a lot of cheap options. And then DK, I think you can definitely fade him in cash, go him in tourneys with the value of small forward and a little bit more difficult roster construction with price.
So we go with Ibaka. He's kind of the chalk at power forward, right?
Yep.
On both, I mean, on FanDuel particularly, where are we going? Power forward on DK. It gets a little trickier. You got Blake and Marvin, Ibaka, and Dirk. I still probably go Ibaka and cash. Though I think Blake can have a pretty big game here. Is more of a tournament play for me. So I think Ibaka is kind of where you start your cash game rosters at power forward on both sides.
Yeah, I think Marvin Williams being power forward eligible on DK is definitely interesting. So I think he's an option there at just 4,800. We kind of talked about him earlier. If you only choose one on DK on FanDuel, I think Ibaka is kind of a clear-cut guy, and then you can have a secondary power forward such as Marvin. So he's a guy I think who's in the mix. But I'm probably leaning towards Ibaka. I like his consistency throughout these playoffs so far. And I think for tournaments, you definitely want to get some Blake exposure and some of these other guys.
I agree.
Yeah, Blake is pretty cheap at DraftKings in comparison to FanDuel, but at the same time, like you said, Ibaka has actually been more consistent. Blake has failed to meet expectations over his last 2 games, I believe. So even though the minutes are there, I still think due to his shooting woes, due to maybe he's still getting healthy, I don't know. But either way, the price for Ibaka still kind of trumps Blake in my mind.
Yeah, for cash, for sure. And then, we'll touch up on Cantor real quick. I'm fine. Like Justin said, he has such a high ceiling on these small slates.
Mm-hmm.
That's so valuable, getting a guy who might be a bit under-owned if people gravitate towards Al Jefferson because he's starting. You're getting upside from Cantor that nobody else really has outside of Whiteside probably. And then, I think I trust his floor a bit. I mean, he might get like 18, which is rough, but you're also getting the positive of the upside there. So I'm fine with him in cash. I'm not really sure if I'm going to roll him in cash yet, but I think he's definitely up there in the mix at the top.
Let me jump the shark a little bit here. So one guy we'll talk about soon is Mason Plumlee, and I think for me, I do like Cantor quite a bit, but for me, I think if we're choosing between the two, I'm paying up for Plumlee because he does. I mean, he's absolutely crushed in the playoffs when he's seen heavy minutes, and given the way that game kind of projects to play out, I think the line as of now is 3.5. So close game. We saw 20 plus rebounds from Mason last game. I think Plumlee is probably higher on my list in both cash and tournaments than Cantor.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, Plumlee's a great play. It's all about the minutes for him, which I think he'll have a high floor of minutes in this one, especially. So with the 3-game slate he's got, I'm looking at. We can get into him in a minute. Let's go on to that game. Last game of the night, the Jelly Bean wager game of the night for all of us Fantasy Labs NBA guys, I think. And yeah, it's Clippers at Blazers. Clippers are favored by 3.5, which I think we're fine with.
Yep.
And then the total is 205.5. So nice total, close game. I think there's a lot of value in this game relative to the slate. We got Chris Paul at the top. So let's start with the Clippers. I think Chris Paul, we mentioned he's a very strong cash play. I'm looking at going him on both sides for his high floor. He's a fine tournament play as well, obviously. I do think he'll be a bit chalky to where you can go other guys at point guard, be contrarian, but as far as cash, I think he's one of the strongest plays, all things considered.
Yeah, I want a lot of Chris Paul on this one. I think he might be, right up there with one of my favorite, elite options. I probably prefer him to Russ even, just because the game flow and how I expect him to play more minutes and not have to kind of risk the blowout potentially. Though Russ is obviously very solid. I think you definitely, your next guy you look at is DeAndre Jordan. Very solid safe bet for 40 DK points in this one. And yeah, center's tricky. There's a lot of options to look at center, a lot of different ways to go. You can go Jefferson, Jordan, Mason Plumlee, Whiteside if you want to gamble with that thigh. And yeah, just a lot of different Cantor that we just talked about. A lot of different options at center. So I think that's kind of going to be where cash games are going to be won. Just being able to pick the right center. And I think it's a great spot to kind of diversify in tournaments too, and kind of diversify your portfolio if you're throwing multiple teams in a tournament. So center particularly is very interesting today. I think DeAndre is the safest. You kind of know what you're going to get, 40 DK points. At his price, 7,700 on DK, it's pretty really nice. So AK on FanDuel is solid too. So I like him quite a bit. And beyond that, I'm off JJ Redick completely with that heel issue. You don't want to touch him. He's kind of limited with the minutes, and then I think he has steals and blocks. Hasn't had one in quite a while. Obviously, for a guy who makes a living running off screens and mobility is such a huge thing for him. Having something with his feet is, that kind of affects it is a big deal. So I'm totally off JJ Redick. And then we talked about Blake Griffin. I think really good tournament play. Been struggling the last 2 games. Like John said, nobody's really on him. So kind of a good spot to, target him in a game that I expect the Clippers to win. And he'll definitely have to have a sizable hand in that for sure.
Yeah, you basically just summed it up. We talked about this last time about me going third on the pod and everyone taking the ideas. Yeah. Paul, he's only taken 7 shots at most in 2 games. I think 4 in the other one, but he still gets it done across the board. So either way, yeah, I'm definitely liking. Did I get that wrong?
Yeah, he's taking
7 3-pointers. I'm sorry, but he gets it done across the board.
I wonder why you go last.
I wonder why you don't have a coffee maker is what I'm wondering. But he gets it done across the board. That's all I got to say. You took everything else. Portland, though, I'm going to go ahead and steal the ideas off that one.
Let's let John start things off.
I'll let you talk the easy one, though, because last game I targeted the front court as a contrarian tournament option between Aminu, Harkless, and Plumlee. And 2/3 of that at least
went off.
Yeah, incredible. Harkless only finished with like 12 FanDuel points, I think it was. But either way, I think I would go back to all 3 again, especially the 2/3. I don't mind Harkless. He's still going to get the minutes in this, and that appears to be the rotation that they want to target in this game. So even though we all do like the Clippers, I think that's the 3 stack to go in tournaments.
Yeah, they've been really tightening up the rotation. We saw 5 players, their starters, go 30 plus, and most of them go 35 plus. And then you only have really 1 or 2 guys in the peripheral, Allen Crabbe and Ed Davis. So we're seeing them really commit to his starters and not mess around with guys like Noah Vonleh or.
Still plays Chris Kaman.
Still plays Chris Kaman.
Stotts is like 90% there.
He's getting there.
hasn't put McCollum out of the lineup card at least this playoff. Pretty impressive.
Yeah, so I think this is I like John's idea last game, and I'll go back to this game. Aminu and Mason Plumlee are my favorite two from this team. I think people chase points a little bit with CJ McCollum. He made some insanely difficult shots. Jay Sean was there, had some jelly beans on it, was tilting hard after some of them. So I'm off CJ. I think in tournaments only. I don't, like I said, I probably want to punt shooting guard and cash. Don't want to chase those. And Dame, you kind of look at CP3, Russ, Kemba even. There's so many good point guard options to where for Dame here too is tournament only for me. In a game where I like the Clippers a lot, I think we'll kind of be a little disappointed by Dame and CJ overall.
Yeah, I mean, you guys summed it up. I know how John feels now going third, but I think the two clear cash guys are Aminu and Plumlee. The rest are tournament only for me. I like getting some Dame, but yeah, like we talked about, we're really high on the Clippers in this one. There's probably a decent chance we won't have a pod the rest of the playoffs if Portland covers. But we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I think especially on this slate, it kind of all works out so easily with the spots you spend at, the spots you save at. It's pretty easy with the 3-game slate. It feels like an 8-game slate where there's a lot of value and things come naturally, but you just condense it in a 3-game slate. So I like the slate overall. I think for cash, it's relatively chalky. And then for tournaments, you just kind of, on this slate, honestly, you just kind of do the opposite construction of what you would think for cash. We have plenty of guys, especially at point guard and center. I think that's where you want to differentiate the most, is center and point guard, where you have a lot of really solid options, but a few strong cash options.
Yep, I think that about wraps it up. Want to close this out by wishing Jay Sean a happy birthday. Guys, hit him up on Twitter. Send him some birthday love, and we're gonna
go Clippers.
We're gonna go big tonight, and hopefully, the Clippers show up.
Yep, and hopefully we have a pod for you guys. We'll try to get John's other half of the head in the video, but I can't promise anything. So
I'm gonna leave early and go get coffee right now.
All right. Until then, guys. Yeah, good luck on this slate. Hope you guys crush it, and we'll be back with you guys tomorrow.
Good luck, guys.